Everyone.
Blessed. But that's not an answer to that question. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
That's an answer.
Actually, it's not. Blessed is not really a state of being when the answer is that question.
No complaints.
Thank you all for participating. I'm gonna give a few more minutes to let other folks join in that might sign up for the discussion group. I also the next discussion that we're having in February, we have a few really good discussions coming up. So definitely be on the lookout for discussions. And we're trying to do them on the third Sunday of the month at 1 o'clock. So being consistent, because that is something that our people sometimes are challenged with, is being consistent. So we want to be consistent. And we've got some great discussions and really awesome moderators for those discussions. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited about this particular panel. So I am going to allow them to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Dr. Lafitte because she's on my screen right now.
I am Dr. Latanya Lafitte. I am a licensed clinician in DC as well as in Maryland, and I am co-owner of the Bridges Wellness Group.
And next we'll go to Dr. Christian.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Tasha Christian. I am a licensed professional counselor here in Virginia. And I'm also an adjunct counselor educator. So very nice to see you all again.
Could someone please mute themselves? We can hear them.
Like the big fake pancakes on the side. Hold the pancakes, please.
You got it. Can I get some pancakes?
Yeah, I want some pancakes too.
I think if our moderator or whoever's running the chat may want to try to mute all, we don't want to interrupt somebody's brunch.
Do we need any ketchup, salt, and pepper?
Or ketchup, salt, and pepper.
Sounds like potatoes.
I know, extras, yes.
Maple syrup for the two of you.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's Troy. Troy, can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we can see everyone else at this point who.
Yeah. So Dr. Ford,
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. David Julius Ford Jr., and I am a counselor educator and licensed professional counselor. I am licensed in North Carolina, Virginia, and New Jersey. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Professional Counseling at Monmouth University on the beautiful Jersey Shore. I'm also the president of the New Jersey Counseling Association, and I sit on the board of directors of the LGBTQ Scholars of Color Network.
Y'all got all of that. And Reverend Owens, Pastor Owens.
Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Darrell Owens, and I'm the spiritual director here in Washington, D.C. of Journey Worldwide, and excited today.
Awesome. So thank you all for joining in with our discussion, our continuing discussion, relationships and our responsibilities to each other as Black men and Black women. And I'm going to jump right in. Like last time, and so much has happened since the last time, right? People have given us so much to talk about.
Dr. Battle, I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yes, yes.
If you could ask if everyone could mute, I think even if someone's typing, we can just hear it. So I think if everyone could mute other than I think the panelists, there we go. I think we're straight. I'm sorry.
No. Thank you. Housekeeping, we love it. And honestly, last time we talked, that was one of the things that we said that our Black women were supposed to do, right? So you just did it. I appreciate that. So I'm just going to jump right in. The last time we talked really about the fact that we've kind of lost our sense of community, and that's really the foundation of our responsibilities to each other as Black men and Black women, correct? And so after that conversation, because Dr. Lafitte and I are partners, she and I kind of continued the conversation, and we were talking about the fact that that slavery created so much competition among us and between us as Black men and Black women. That we don't really, we look at that, but we don't really look at how it's playing out now. We kind of leave that like, oh, that was back then. Like right now, our issues are really what we're dealing with right now, not understanding that that's kind of ingrained in our DNA. And so talking about how we deal with that. So what can we do in acknowledging that and unpacking that as Black people?
I wanted to jump in real quick. Just listening to you present that, I guess I want to ask a question of all of the panelists, and that is, do you think it's ingrained in our DNA to be radically competitive against each other, or is that conditioning?
Honestly, and I was really talking about this. I think our DNA lends itself to us being more collectivistic. There's one person that needs to mute.
It's one of the NABC.
Yeah.
It's one of the NABC. That's
not just
don't know who. It's three on, so we don't know which one, but it's not the one that's the host. But if you have an NABC logged in account, can you look at Zoom to see that it's you who's not on mute? Okay, I think no, we're still not on mute.
They left. Yeah, it's not on mute. Yeah.
Whoever is the host NABC, can you mute them? Okay, I think we're all good now.
Yeah. I think our DNA lends itself to us being more collectivistic because of our African heritage. I would say that capitalism has done a number on us.
Okay.
It's conditioning.
Yeah, it's conditioning. I would say capitalism and the Black church have fucked us up.
Hey, amen to that. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was the big thing, because I think that's important. Like for everything that we say from that point, you like, because that the whole crabs in a barrel, or the idea that, you know, when there was the in-house slave and the out-house slave, I'm sure that was some competition, which then turns into, like you said, the capitalism, where it's self-preservation, every man for himself. You want to get your family on, you want to get successful, you want to get out of the ghetto. Mm-hmm. So I get that, but I feel like it's more conditioned, because I think that we, by nature, as Black people, carry the most compassion. I think at
too much compassion.
Well, yes, exactly. That could be to a fault too. Yes. I'm gonna be very concise. I'm not gonna talk no long strands. I'm gonna be very concise.
I mean, last time we had this conversation, Dr. Christian said we invite too many people to the function. So.
We do. You know, we give out so many cultural passes, right? And so much of that is rooted in whenever someone does something that is likened to our culture, right? We get tickled by it. And what happens subconsciously is that in our minds, because you did this dance really well, or because you know this song, or whatever the case may be, in our minds, that means that you must believe that Black lives matter. So what we're saying is, whoo, yes, welcome, welcome. But the challenge is we've never seen those people in action, right? So we look at one thing that you do, and in our minds, what we're doing literally is connecting the dots. So it's an if-then statement. If you do this, then that means that you believe our life matters. Or if you do this, then that believes you're going to be a cultural ally. And the challenge is we've never given someone the opportunity to rise or fall to the occasion. That's why we get so hurt when we see people make a major mistake that's rooted in how you've always thought. We're blindsided, but we're blindsided because we never actually gave a chance for you to show us that who you really were.
You didn't vet them. Like, for instance, Sam Whiteout. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Did people see him shimmy and twirling a cane? And so he's invited to the cookout. But that motherfucker is still white.
And you haven't done anything to show, you know, allyship, advocacy, these things are actions. right? It is very easy to post an all Black picture on June 2nd to say Blackout Tuesday. That doesn't cost you anything, right? Because the truth is, if someone who is talking to you says, well, why'd you do that? For all we know, behind closed doors, you could say, because Black people tend to buy a lot of my stuff. And so let me make sure they keep buying my stuff, right? You could say that. You also could say you believe in Black lives. I don't know. But what I know is that we've given out so many passes and that goes back to historically, our goal had been to assimilate and accommodate, right? Those were just our goals. We believed that that was a sign to show that you made it, that you were accepted by white people. And so we've passed that down from so many generations that we just given out all the things we can give. We will knock out some of our own who maybe need a little more teaching, but we will knock out some of our own to bring somebody else in. And that person has done nothing but literally tap and dance to show us that they're welcoming of a cookout invite.
Okay.
What you gonna bring when you get there? What are you cooking?
Not some raisins and potato salad. No.
What you just said there, though.
Can I interject here?
Oh, go ahead.
I want to interject too and let the panelists know and the rest of the audience know that NABC recently has really had some good allies come to us. And they have demonstrated in more ways than one that they are down with our cause. They have not only put work in, but they've also put their money where their mouth is too. And so to me, that's very important that when we have allies, one, that they approach us, not that we go looking for them. And two, when they approach us, that they approach us in the right way, with the right attitude, and with a willingness to give and to bring power to the people. And the allies that we have thus far have done that, and they've done far and above that. So matter of fact, just to let you guys know, the new website that we have right now is a result of one of our allies. And so we are, while I think I'm all down for the cause, power to the people, I am Marcus Garvey, I am all things Rap Brown. At the same time, I realize that we've always had allies. However, I agree with everything that you're saying. We don't necessarily need to dance and demonstrate and they just show us one little thing and we're tickled. I think they need to come correct, and they need to come correct with action, help, assistance, and money to show us that they're serious.
But see, that's why I want to challenge our terminology right now.
Yes, please do.
Yes, because allyship is bullshit. What we're looking for are accomplices.
Yeah.
DeRay McKeeson said, allies love you from a distance. Accomplices love you up close.
Exactly.
And so, the time. So allies are the ones that come in and say, well, I'm here, that's all you need. No, or they come in and usurp the voices of those that are marginalized and say, well, that's not how you do this. Or when we call them out on their racist bullshit, they get defensive and retreat.
Exactly.
Yeah. An accomplice, however, will say, hold up, I got you. No. Okay, when they start throwing darts, your accomplices will lock arms with you and take darts with you. And if you give them permission, they stand in front of you and take darts for you. And when they get tired of taking darts, what they do is they'll check the motherfucker that's throwing darts, even if that means that they're going to lose their own social capital with their own peer group.
Well, then I stand corrected, Dr. Ford. We have accomplices because they have done that to the point where some of them have even lost family members behind.
And that's what I'm talking about.
And you should lose those family members.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I say that because I can't, it's for me, and this is, I've had to do this in my own family, right? So if I can't hold my family accountable for a comment that you made, I can't turn around and look at a person who represents that population and smile in their face.
Absolutely.
Because they would be absolutely hurt to know that my silence is what I led with, right? No matter how uncomfortable it gets, right? And so and if we move this back to Black men and Black women, that's one of our challenges, right? It is that, you know, when we talked about this is what we need, right? Like when my shoulders are heavy, right? And so we can describe all of that for what we want white people to do. But I think when we bring that back internally, it's met with a degree of resistance, because we're both fighting to be the most oppressed of our race. Right. We both got to fight to say, I got it the worst. No, I got it the worst. And so when we're having that fight to who has it the worst, we can't be accomplices for each other.
So we said a lot of stuff, but one of the things that I wanted to jump on that we've talked about is inviting people to the function. And I think that we also need to look within our own group, because we look at somebody and think just because you're Black, that's how you identify yourself, right? And I'm very, when I'm talking to people, I ask them how they describe themselves, because the first thing that you lead with, that's where you see yourself as first, right? And some people, it's their sexuality. Some people, we saw the Black Christians that said, I'm a Christian first before I'm here, and you're like, okay. Right? So those are the things that you're leading with, and that's the group that you are an accomplice to, first and foremost, and then all of these other groups and parts of yourself come into play. And I think that has hurt us as well, because we thought that we've had, this person on our side because they look like me, and so they must identify with my struggle, and it hasn't helped us. And to your point, Dr. Christian, then it becomes, well, I'm a bigger victim than you are because I was the first one to get here and I had to do blah, 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 blah. And I think that goes back to that sense of community. Like we've lost that crab in the barrel. Like, where did that come from, and how do we deal with that? And how do we support our sisters and our brothers in that?
Right. And I think that for us, one of the first things that we have to do, and it sounds so simple, but we have to acknowledge that we're not each other's enemy. That I got to let you know that when I'm talking to you about my challenges, it's not because I'm minimizing yours, right? So I need you to hear my challenge, and then let's talk about yours too, but we're not enemies. And it's, you look at so many other cultures, those who have been marginalized in the past, right? There's been a sense of, let's fight against those. Our challenge has been that we have our internal fight, and then we're too fatigued to fight the masses, right? We're just fatigued. We watched last week an attack on our nation, and those officers who were in the right, those officers were fatigued. And hours of hand-to-hand fighting and resistance wears you down. If anyone who's ever worked in behavioral health, you try to, restrain a child for 10 minutes and you're sweating. And so you're too battle fatigued to fight anyone else. And I think our challenge is that internally we fight so much that then when it's time for us to fight against somebody else, we can't. Or I can't forget the fact that you and I not right yet. I think that's just where our challenge has been. And I really do think it goes back to, we spent so much time trying to fit in with other cultures that we really put aside the beauties of ours.
Yeah, because even when you look at our communities, and we said it the last time, like all the children in our community used to belong to everybody. I was having a conversation with somebody last week, and we were talking about the fact that, growing up, if people said don't go by so-and-so's house, they never told you why.
Right.
You just knew not to go. And if anybody in our group saw us going by that person's house, they got us, and then they told our parents, and our parents got us. Like, we don't have that anymore. It's like your kids. And instead of, you coming to the defense of the adult or supporting the adult that is correcting your child and trying to protect your child, you fight that adult. Yep. And we see that a lot with Black mothers. And then, which, makes it very difficult for Black men to even want to engage and be a part of the child rearing process. Right?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Agree, because there are some, and I think that it's not necessarily about assigning gender roles. I think it's more so about a person is speaking, you need conversations from someone that share a similar lens, right? And so my nephew's 26, and there's a lot of things that I can teach him and that he will acknowledge that I have taught him. But my lens, if there is something that he needs to know from the lens of a Black man, my lens stops. And every answer I give you is rooted in the lens of a Black woman. So it might be rooted in a jaded lens at that moment. If you're asking me about relationship stuff, I'm giving you a 39-year-old answer who's gonna be like, let me tell you another thing. And he's looking at me like, Natasha, that's not, I was just trying to get clarification. But again, my lens has stopped with that, right? So there's some conversations that it's not linked to you need a man, but you need the lens. And if your issue it requires the lens of a male, then it's going to require the lens of a male, right? And so I think that we just have, I also go to, because our people have not believed in getting help for so long, we are undoing generations of just maladaptive stuff, right? And so some of the things I think for us as practitioners that we're like, well, yeah, this is why, and we can explain it. We're having to teach entire communities something that other cultures are hundreds of years ahead of us on, because they've gotten the help. Like, and we're just starting to learn some things as a culture that your peers are far more advanced in. And that's where we've done our disservice internally, because we've just said, don't go at Thanksgiving, don't hug Uncle Joe. No, we needed to say that Uncle Joe is unsafe and Uncle Joe should not be in this house. Or instead of giving grandma a nerve pill all the time, we needed to say that grandma is struggling with anxiety. And so this is a bad day for grandma. So here's what we do for grandma. Maybe you can't keep running in and out the house that day. It's not due to the electric bill, but grandma's having a rough day. And so we didn't do that. We said grandma takes a nerve pill and don't hug Uncle Joe. Generations later, we got too much that's going on.
Okay, so let me ask a question really quickly to all of the panelists again, and that is to that point about being able to call a thing what it is. How long have we known generationally what these things were? Like today, there are so many Black women dealing with anxiety, depression, and so forth. Not that Black men are not dealing with it. I think a lot of it may be undiagnosed in Black men half of the time, but many Black women have sought to get the help and figured out what it is. And we have these terms today that I know growing up, I did not hear all the time. So just in my generation, I didn't hear understanding labels for all of these different behaviors and things that we have. So generationally, how long have we been educated on a mass level where we could know what it was? Because I think a lot of it was just grandma and big mom and them dealing with it the best way they could. Because we were more communal because we were all we had. The racism was much worse. Jim Crow, these things, it was different, So the way you certainly didn't report people to the police. You didn't do certain things like that. You just dealt with it. So I'm just wondering from the doctors that are here, generation, how long have we been up to speed? Has it been the last 20 years? Because I know 20 years ago, it felt very archaic, 20 years ago. So if you go back 40 years or even, 60 years, how long have we been up to speed with understanding what stuff is? Because I think this may be more newer than we can, than we admit. It's a new space for us to be able to say we know what that is now. We know what that is.
Well, okay, but before we answer that question, we have to look at what the barriers are for our community to have sought out mental health services. There is a distrust and rightly so of mental health professionals, of medical professionals in general.
Right. Right.
And then, I would stand to reason that ACA, because I'm a counselor, needs to reckon with its racist history and its racist present.
Okay.
ACA is a white organization. It still is. And the fact that there are still few Black counselors, and the very few don't see any need to be a part of ACA because of the whiteness. The profession is mostly white and female. Most of your counselor educators are white, you know?
Sure.
And so before we even talk about that, we need to, ACA, APA, all of the NASW need to reckon with their racist histories and their current racist practices that keep us out of the professional side.
Right.
And then academia is racist because it keeps us out of graduate programs.
Absolutely.
And
so
then,
Dr. Ford, I would actually.
And then also what that means for the clients who need the care, and how that's a barrier for us to seek that out. So back in the day, all we had was Big Mama in the family, Big Mama of the street, and the pastor, and they were not equipped to even name a thing, and then to deal with it.
So would you say, Dr. Ford, that so us being able to know what it is and having more Black scholars and doctors and teachers that are educated enough to be able to, you know, the guidance counselor wasn't even Black, you know, even if you happen to have a Black teacher, I had more white teachers, but the idea that, so it's pretty new that we understand and have a community of people who are educated to be able to help each other process through and name what that is. It's fairly new, right?
Yes. But see, even then, we're seen as outsiders because we went to these programs and are coming back, and they don't trust us because we are representative of the man. Yeah. And so even when we come and they look at us like we're stupid, like, you know, I mean, I've got people that still tell me that mental illness is demonic, and that may be part of it, you know, but that's not the whole story. Right. And so still getting saved folks, and I'm saved and sanctified. I will shout all over a church, fall out, speak in tongues, and all of that. But you know, some of the saved folks are the ones that still stigmatize the work that we do and discount it. And when it comes from the pulpit, that's even worse because they're more prone to listen to their pastor than to listen to us who have the expertise.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and I bet that all of us that are mental professionals can account for that when we try to, you know, even come to a pastor and say, let's do a workshop on this. You know, we met with resistance. So we have to fight that barrier too because we've had the training.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, so the only reason I brought that, I asked those questions is because I think that context is super important in understanding like where we are and the true timeline, right? Of like, how we just kind of got here. And I don't really think we should expect the Black community to be up to speed because I think we're only like 2 generations removed from where we didn't have widespread doctors and psychologists and admirals and generals in the army and stuff like that. We just didn't have all of those things. So this stuff is like fairly new. And I think that as behind as we might be as Black people, that it's not as bad as it might feel sometimes. I don't know, am I off? Y'all can tell me.
No, our trauma is bad.
Yeah, I think
our trauma is bad
Well, I'm talking about in context, though. I mean, yes, it's bad, but I mean, we've made some progress. I'm just saying.
Oh, you know, we've made progress.
What we had to work with, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've made progress, and I think for us, when we say it's bad, we're looking at it from a systemic standpoint, right? So I say our trauma is bad because, gosh, if I could get this brother to trust me enough to help guide him through this process, we wouldn't be on our 4th visit to jail. Right? Mm-hmm. Because you can't stop it when that anger is out of control. But I can't help you because you got to trust me. Right?
Right.
So when I say it's bad, I look at it in the space of if there are 5,000 who are in the system right now, if 250 could trust this process, that's 250 people that are free. Right? So I look at it systemically.
Sure.
that just says that's where our challenge is. Because Dr. Ford is right. You know, you'll be sent off to college and sent off to your graduate school, and everybody's proud of you that they calling you doctor, and you sit in that congregation and they say you don't need to see a doctor in order for somebody to tell you that your bipolar is the devil. But you're proud of me. So what happens is when that person comes in my office, that's what I'm fighting. So I'm not just fighting the fact that we got to educate and catch our community up, because we know that. We know we got to catch up. We know that's going to take some years to do that, but I'm fighting that. So when I'm saying something like, okay, so I want to tell you that is not demonic, because now the energy that's radiating in your body says, I'm doing these things because I'm demonic. I got to fight that.
Sure.
You know, so when you're in the office, you're like, no, I don't want you to think that. But I also don't want you to feel like now you got to go against your pastor. So, and so then when you challenge that it's not demonic, then the first thing they meet you with is, well, that means you don't believe in Jesus either. Well, no, I was at the same service you were at. I was absolutely horrified when Pastor said that. Right. And that, I think that's where we kind of have some of our challenge, is that we need those cultural community brokers to create the space of trust.
And I think the other issue too is that when you look at it in relation to Black men and Black women, a Black man coming to a Black female therapist and you're saying these things, and he's like, but you don't know what the plight of the Black man is. You haven't had to deal with what I've had to deal with, right? And it goes back to you, like you said, we're trying to out-victim each other. And then you, Black women, will take a posture of, now you become more maternal and you're trying to accommodate him versus really educate him and elevate him, right? Which is what we said is the responsibility of the Black woman when it comes to Black men. And then when we look at those roles in our community, so the pastor may spew this, but it's reinforced by the ones that are teaching in our community. And a lot of times those roles do fall on the women, because for whatever reason, a lot of times Black men are not around.
Yeah, and I would say this too on behalf of the church. Just a slight defense of the church, and I don't defend the church often at all, but I do. I'm looking at it from a very wide lens, a wide perspective, and I'm just saying that looking at the church having to be all it had to be to the Black community, I see why it's clinging to some of its power, its grip, right? It wants to feel like it could still be the specialist in all these areas. And, you know, it was a generation just after, like in 2003 up until 2015 or so, it was a generation of churches that were trying to be, you know, financial educators and relationship gurus. And they were trying to do all this out of the church. But I know that one of the things the church is going to have to do is going to have to exercise itself of all of the social things, not saying that it can't be a supportive component, but the church should focus on the spiritual aspect of the person, the spirituality, the relationship with God, faith. But that's hard for the church because they're clinging to this power that they have, right? They don't want to say, I can't speak on these things, when it's like, it's okay. Let somebody else take that way, or bring a doctor in on staff, whatever. The idea is you focus on the spiritual and let the emotional relationship be done by people who specialize in those areas. That's hard for the church because at one time, the church had to become all of these things: the fireman, the policeman, the dirt nurse, the doctor, the bus driver. So,
yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I have a question then. So this is my question. If that's true, do you all think, because I've had this discussion with friends before, that Black men have felt demasculinized by women in general, and that one of their ways of having power, or their seat of power, being that they can't have power in white society, is power in the pulpit in a Black church?
Oh, I'm about to cut a step and speak into it. That's a sermon right there. That's a sermon right there.
And power over Black women who will follow them without question. And does that increase their masculinity and their feelings of masculinity within the community?
Hey, well, here's how I will answer
Pastor.
how I would answer that is that I will say, without a absolute confession, I'm going to say that the pulpit is the cause of a ton of ego mania, and a giant source of pride, and it has made a lot of people, it's built their significance rather than them putting in the value as a man, or you know what I'm saying, or as a leader really doing the work. It's like the church has really morphed into this place where you could just go and plant a flag and say, I got a church, and then stand up, and then people get assigned to you respect that you didn't earn as an individual or as a spiritual leader, you know? And so, yes, subtly, yes, it is a place where people grab a hold of quick, easy power, and they do it over the weakest of us all, the less educated of us all. And it's a tough space because it's all shrouded under the umbrella of doing God's work.
You're right. And I think that one of the challenges with, you know, when you look at, and I think this is where a part of our challenge comes in. I think we got an echo. Let me give it a second. I think where one of our challenges comes in when we look at those dynamics, right? Because that was a loaded question and scenario. One of the things that we know is that sometimes when Black women are, and I say this from my lens, are elevated into these positions of power. I think if the other NABC could mute, I think they had to hang up. They're good. So when I am this person at work, etc., who's got to make all these decisions, all that good stuff, I really don't want to be that person when I walk in my door. I genuinely don't want to answer where you want to go for dinner, because I've had to make decisions all day long. So I really don't want, so when I say I don't care, I genuinely don't care. However, I know that if all you see is me speaking somewhere, or teaching somewhere, or leading somewhere, your natural assumption is she's like that in every other area of her life. It's a false assumption, but I get the assumption.
Dr.
So
Christian,
we don't ever talk and communicate.
Before you finish, I want to push back on you a little bit. I want you to tell me this. So you come home and you say you don't want to make decisions. Say I'm your man, right? I'm your man. You come home, you say you don't want to make no decisions or whatever. But because I see you making decisions, I assume you want to keep making decisions. Or do you or women in general struggle to turn that switch off?
It is a struggle. And this is why you got to do your own work, right? Because here's the challenge. I can't say, I don't want to make the decisions, but then I'm like, well, no, these are the 4 places that are the best places for us to go. So let's go here too, right? That's why we got to get our own individual counseling before you go into couples counseling. So, because in my counseling, in my work, my therapist has had to say, now I'm gonna point out where there's a disconnect in what you're saying. There's a contradiction here. You're saying this, but your actions say that. So can you see how the message is confusing? Right. So that was my work I had to do. So instead of me stewing in it and being upset and causing chaos that we don't need to have, I need to get to a point where I say, so fun fact, I really don't want to make these decisions. If you say that you want to go to Popeyes today, then we're going to go to Popeyes. Okay?
You know, so I think in relationships, we have these series of misfires, right? Because I feel like as a man, I could meet a woman and you hear women say that statement, I'm not making it light of it, but make that statement of, you know, I don't want to be the leader or in control when I get home. They say that, but then like as you said, you experience behavior that says you will settle for nothing less than what you have decided we are going to be and do. And like we said last time, men will tap out, will be there, but not be there. You know, and so I feel like sometimes that may train me in one experience, and then I might meet a woman, maybe she's serious about, I don't need to make the decision, but I'm like, nah, she wants to make the decision. And so, you know, it's misfiring.
I ain't gonna fall for it, right?
Exactly.
Right. You do, it becomes that, right? That's why that's again why we have to do our stuff, right? Because again, I can do these things, but send the wrong message to you. And now we're both sitting in here with attitudes because we just didn't talk to each other, but we also didn't work on our own stuff. The beauty of counseling is, if you have a counselor who you're never upset with, if you have a counselor who never challenges you, fire that one and get a new one, right? Because the beauty of counseling is at some point in time, I got to rise up and be like, that's not what I mean. I've had to do this. And my counselor is like, so real quick, that's the issue. That strong reaction that you just had to this is the issue. So as women, sometimes we've been conditioned to think that love and relationships is supposed to be long suffering. I'm supposed to love you through all the worst, and not the worst as in we have seasons of going through life. That's life. But I'm supposed to love you through you not trying. I'm supposed to love you through all the pain. I'm supposed to love you through this, right? So from the lens of a woman, it becomes a badge of honor to say, he cheated on me 7,913 times, but he got it together by year 15. And by the grace of God, we are married. Goals. I'm supposed to say that. We've conditioned ourselves to say that. So the challenge then is, when I sat in the house and never talked about how I felt, I sent the message that it was okay. Exactly. So while we are so angry with the man, I also got to take some responsibility in that, say, you sent a message that you were going to tolerate that. You sent a message that it was okay. So my counselor has to say to me, at what point do you decide to send a message that is not okay?
And see,
that's how we do our work.
You have to realize also that those are learned behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
It's passed down generation to generation, learned behavior.
Yes.
What did my mom teach me about relationships and how to just sit in something that just wasn't healthy, physically or mentally, for myself? Learn behaviors.
Yeah. And see, that's why when people post those questions, why aren't relationships lasting like they did with our grandparents? I'm like, first of all, you got to stop glorifying those relationships, because you don't know what grandma went through with grandpa. Exactly. I mean, you got grandkids that are just finding out that they got aunts and uncles from Big Mama up the street because grandpa was tiptoeing. And grandma knew about it, but because of people saying, well, you need to stay with that man, yada, she stayed in that marriage. But you never know, grandpa might have been beating up on grandma, but you never saw it. So you gotta stop glorifying this relationship. And then grandma passes those messages onto her daughters. No matter what, you stay with that man.
Yep.
If he cheats on you, if he hits you, whatever, you stay with him. And those messages gets passed on, and all that dysfunction gets passed on, but people never see what grandma actually went through with grandpa.
Agreed.
The other thing that is being taught there, silently, is that as a male, I can then do all of these things and it's okay.
Yeah.
Nobody told you that it was, but they showed you that it was. The behavior was modeled before you. And that's, I think, one of the failings of the Black family is, like, we teach our daughters certain things, but our sons kind of learn it. Like,
it's not fair to them.
They just,
it's not fair.
And so it's so interesting. Somebody posted this on Facebook. They said, we talk about the fact that women have daddy issues and they're looking for a father figure, but we never talk about the fact that men have mommy issues and are looking for a woman to take care of them. Right?
Yeah, because the parents have, it becomes so unfair, and I said, one of my little cousins, he's 9, and we're best friends. If you see him, we are follow me on social media, that is my best friend. We have conditioned our little boys, if they fall, if they're upset, if they lose a game, if they strike out, whatever, and they're just crying out of emotion, we've conditioned them to say, don't cry. Boys don't cry, men don't cry. But why don't they? Right? And so the challenge is that becomes unfair to them, because then he's 40 and his partner is saying to him, you just have no emotion, but he's never been taught to have emotion. Or he's been taught that showing emotion is wrong, or it makes you weak. And as women, we got to take our responsibility too, because I've seen a lot of moms say, boys don't cry, men don't cry, don't do this, but your daughter can cry. right? The challenge is we're telling one sex to not show emotion, but it's okay for the other sex to show emotion. Where in general, if we are human beings, we can show emotion. Every living, breathing animal, you see a puppy have emotion, you hear a puppy whimper, it is one of the saddest things to hear, right? But we're telling our boys, don't have this emotion, don't do this. And that's whether it's coming from fathers or from mothers. And so what happens is that you have this boy then who's 15, 16 and has no clue, who do I go to just be upset and just cry? And that's been an unfair burden placed on Black boys, which then became an unfair burden on Black men. Right? To not have emotion.
I think there's another burden too, because I've seen the opposite side. I've seen the opposite side where men are completely, for the traditional word, henpecked, where they've learned that to be a good husband, you just have to do whatever she says do. Happy wife, happy life, happy spouse, happy house. Yeah. So whatever she says, he is being mothered by her to the point where he's being smothered by her. And whatever she wants is whatever he has to do in order to keep things happy. Yeah. So that there is no happy medium between the two, between learning to, provide security for her, but at the same time, letting her know that, no, you're not going to run over me either. And like you said, it's unfair. I think we've taught Black women, you have to be strong. You can't let these men run over you. So you got a decent person who's kind, and a lot of Black women just browbeat him to death. Where but then there's the other side of that, where you got Black men who have been taught to be totally disrespectful to a woman by what they've seen and not to show emotion. So I guess the question is, how do we get to a happy medium?
We got to get help.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question though to you all on the panel. So what exactly becomes the deciding factor for what is going to be the right way or the right thing in culture that is constantly progressing, is constantly changing? And because like you said, you learn things from what you were exposed to, and you watched your parents or grandparents or uncles do things and act ways, and you learn that without knowing you learned it, and you start mimicking it and reproducing it. So when we say the question you just asked, like, how do we fix it? I guess the idea of fixing it would depend on where are we fixing it to, and if we fix it to that, is it going to still be that in 5 years? What we call, what you call right, or what you call acceptable, or what you call good or good enough, or acceptable, because all of us have, I think there's some of us, that would go to a hotel and have an experience and we wouldn't stay at that hotel. There's others of us that wouldn't sweat it and would stay there and talk about it later, but it wouldn't be a big thing. It's the nuances of taste and, subjective ideas of what is right and wrong and things like that. So you all have any good nuggets on what you use as your compass?
Well, I would suggest that we just get to the point of, for me, I think one of the things as a counselor that I use is a barometer of just, let's get to healthy.
Yeah.
Let's just get to healthy. Just like with food, if you eat McDonald's all day, every day, obviously that's not healthy. And some of us are in McDonald's all day emotional relationships. And then some of us have gone to extremes and, we've become vegans in relationships. And so I think, it comes to a point where you have to define what healthy is and a healthy level of functioning for you. And I think when we see dysfunction, it's clear, it's just not working, and it's not working well, and it's not healthy. And the same with our health, I think you can compare to your emotional health. That if it's not working, and there's more bad days than there are good days, then we need to do something different.
Dr. Lafitte, will we give each other a chance to do that journey of becoming healthy? What if everybody agreed that we all going to just get healthy, and you just, you know, find what's healthy for you and start becoming healthy? Will we give each other room to do that, or would it, or do we demand people take the way we think they should take? You know, cut the fat the way we.
Well, first, it's really not about giving someone a chance the way you think they should think. It's about first allowing them to have their own definition. And then from there, you help them come to a healthy place that's going to produce a better quality from where they're at. And then once you help them to realize that that place is still an unhealthy place, then you reestablish that baseline for them and you continue to work towards a healthier goal.
Right.
But it's based on their definition.
And it's going to look different for each person, each relationship, situation. But it is identifying, okay, this is unhealthy. And sometimes it's even helping them to realize it's unhealthy. They've done this for so long and it's gotten them by. And one of the first things that I say to my clients in therapy, when they say they want to work on something and we start working on it and I'm giving them assignments and they're not doing it, the next time they bring it up, I say, nope, we're not talking about that because that's working for you. That for you now is working. When that is no longer working for you,
then we'll do the work.
We need to do the work to change it. But something in that unhealthy cycle is working, right? And so
it meets a need. It meets a need.
Well, you know, I just get nervous because, again, like, you know, coming from the church background, I'm a third generation minister, and you know,
not against you.
Yeah, exactly. And the church has been a stickler for, you know, when people come in moving at their pace or growing at their rate, we can see their potential and we try to push them further and faster. And then others we try to judge that don't count because they don't do it they won't fall in line. So the church has been a big proponent of making people fall in line. And like Dr. Lafitte said, I think that, you know, when you, like you were just talking about Dr. Better also, you know, when you're trying to help someone or you're trying to guide someone and kind of, you know, become some oil that allows them to move a little, you know, better into their healthy space, you know, allowing them to find that way, figure it out is so important. But do we have any things in place that really give people the room to do that, to figure? Because I think we're always trying to get people to get in line or to assimilate to this process.
See, I think that with emotional and cultural health, which is what we're all speaking of, the optimal goal for the culture is health, right? To be healthy.
Yes.
And so each person is going to be on that journey differently because each person has their own set of circumstances. But the cultural goal is we want our people to be as healthy as we possibly can in all aspects of what area that is in life. So I think that when as counselors, as counselor educators, when we are pushing the community, it's because we know what we've lost. Right? It's when we see the overall lens of what has our culture, where have we been hurt the most? You know, our goals, it just ethically is to do no harm. And so it's doing you harm if I never identify the risk associated with discontinued behavior, the risk associated with our culture remaining on the same trajectory. I am doing the culture harm if I'm silent, because we've been silent for so long. At what cost? It's cost us a lot to be silent. You know, so many counselors we've always kind of sat back and said, let the clients will come to me when they're ready to get services, when the community is ready to get some help, they're going to come to me. What we've had to unfortunately learn too is that might not always be the way. And so we've got to go to the communities too. And if it's just a matter of me providing this quick education, maybe that does help one person. Maybe that does spark one person to go and get some individual help, or this family to get some family help. And so I think that's what we've had to realize as as professionals on this side is it's cost us too much. It's cost our people too much to be silent and to not address it, right? We do our work and we work in silos, but we can no longer continue to do that. It's not healthy for our people. You know, when you look at systemic barriers, right? It's going to be uncomfortable because it's going to challenge what's worked for us for so long, right? So I have to say to this client, so this is the 4th generation of this challenge. Somebody has to make a decision to stop functioning in this trauma. And it looks like you have raised your hand to volunteer as tribute, and it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful, but my role is to help walk with you through this pain. And there's going to be a time that I'm not going to be there to help you with that, but I've left you with the tools that you need to be successful. And so that's what we do. But and I will say this, and I think for all the counselors on the line, it is one of the most vulnerable things, because sometimes your people will reject you quicker than other cultures,
Yes.
right? Or there'll be 2 people in the room, and it's only one Dr. Christian, and you think that the white man is Dr. Christian. But why? Or you'll trust his advice and his counsel before you'll trust mine. Because I got to deal with the fact that you think I'm acting white because I sound different.
Right. And then on the flip side, you know, you sought me out because I look like you and we can connect on a level, but you literally want us to just connect on that level. Right? And then the onus becomes on us as the professional in the room to figure out, okay, well, how do I use that to my advantage so that I can, you know, spark the change that needs to happen within this person, and ultimately that should overflow into the community. And I think that's what I think that, you know, when I'm thinking about this particular conversation, like while we've been talking about individual responsibilities, it all ultimately will lead to the larger community as a whole, right? So when we talk about the responsibility of the Black church, and one of the things that I wanted to say that Dr. Christian started off with the capitalism, when you talk about the power in the Black church, that's a part of it, right? Part of the reason why the Black church took on all of those roles, and you know, we both PKs, and I'm third generation too.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that's you too, Dr. Christian. And so part of the reason it took on those roles of counselor and educator and all these things is because it was charging the Black community for these things. You went in and you learned how to work on a computer, or you went in and you got your finance. Like, there was a fee to participate in that course. Now, it might not have been a huge, fee, but there was something you paid to participate in that, right? And so there was capital in that, and that's where you saw the community. And because historically that's where we went for everything, people had no problem doing that. I think one of the reasons why we've seen such a turn away and a shift from the Black church is the Black church lost that sense of community. And it lost that supporting the people in the community, because it used to be the Black church would take that money and then reinvest it in the people and in the community. And now it became the Black church was taking that money. Stop.
So you bring up a good point. I think the Black church has lost its flavor for social responsibility. The Black church still is the cornerstone of the Black community, but not in the way that it was 50, 60 years ago, when the Black church was the leader of the civil rights movement. And now you see the Black church is taking a back seat and has also connected itself with Trumpism.
Well, you know what, Dr. Ford, just real quick, on that point, the problem is, and I hate to say it, but it's the elephant, the big pink and white elephant in the room. And that is that the church has gotten less concerned with community because it's gotten fully engulfed in the money.
Yeah.
And then think about it. I'm gonna call her out. Paula White would have never gotten famous had it not been for the Black church.
Absolutely.
Because the culture broker brought her in.
Right.
Yes.
Because we try, and that's not a knock. Let me be clear, because I don't know that anybody
No,
I don't know the level of discernment you would have to have seen that coming, right? And
no,
you know,
but you said it earlier, Dr. Christian, when you said we get excited if a white person plays on a black basketball team.
Yeah.
If a white person dances as good, half as good as a black person, we get excited. They do anything with us, like us, close to like us, we'd be like, oh, they must be special, and they must also believe and like us and believe our lives matter. So bringing Paula White over, who was, like you said, she adopted our mannerisms, our cadence, our rhythm,
all of, yeah.
It was like, oh, she's kind of like us. And so to have one of them like us, we welcome, you know, her in. And again, that because we've had that same thing about the cookout, we give more money to that. We show up for that. And again, the church, again, when the church realized, when those fathers of that generation, last 2 or 3 generations, realized how much money could be made at one offering, at one giant service, one conference, it just shifted everything. And almost in a way where like the banking system, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they are not under any kind of imaginary fairyland. They understand I got to rotate my managers, my district managers, because I can't let anyone stay 5 years in one place, because they learn the system and seeing the money will be too tempting. They will rotate it because they know just being human, it moves you in this way. So the Black church, having nobody checking it, nobody really, it's been looked at as the end all be all. Seeing this kind of money come in, I don't think any of those bishops or pastors or leaders meant to become this, but when you see it and it's happening and you try to maintain it, it just sucks you in. Like politics changes a person who goes into politics, it changes you.
I think you're right, Pastor.
Let me interject. And it was a bunch of Black men who used a bunch of Black poor women to build their congregations.
And so thank you, Faye, because thank you, Tamara, because what I was going to say is we gave Paula White a card that we would not have given a Black woman.
Well, you know, the Black preachers helped her steal that church from a Black woman.
This is true.
This is true.
This is
and you know what? If we're, let's just, because I love the fact that we are, you know, identifying these elephants in the room, right? Let's just be honest. Paula White fit an aesthetic of attractiveness for men that a lot of Black women in their lens didn't fit.
Yep.
Right. When we just gonna be honest.
But you know, we see that all the time, because I saw one of my fraternity brothers just talk pure shit about Stacey Abrams and her size.
Correct.
Her size.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And he wasn't the only one.
Correct. That's, you know, just to go there, right? So like, I remember saying to someone very recent, this was not so much has happened in the world, you lose track of where we are. But I remember talking to some girlfriends at the start of the election season. And I said, and someone was saying, well, Stacey really would have been a great candidate. And I said, yes, but I don't think Stacey was ready for that stage at this point. And I said, but we also got to recognize as a people, are we ready to see Stacey Abrams on TV like that?
Right.
They said, what do you mean? I said, so let's put Kamala and Stacey side by side.
Right.
And I said, and one of the friends that was there is a lighter skinned woman who's smaller than me. I said, it's in essence putting you and I side by side on the stage.
Yeah.
Let's just be, and I said, and that's not a knock against you. I said, but let's be clear.
Let's be clear.
And where we are as a people right now.
Listen, to Dr. Ford's point, those Black preachers that helped Paula White take that church in Florida, think about it. Zach Tim's wife was as comparable, beautiful Black woman as Paula White was a white woman, but she was white.
She was
you know
white.
what I'm saying? So as Dr. Battle said, you know, they gave Paula White stuff they will not give a Black woman, even if she is beautiful and even she has comparable features and so forth. They just would not do it.
Well,
right, and because you know, that's always the dilemma with the Black woman, right? Like, so okay, you know, I grew up, I'm Baptist, Virginia, all that good stuff. You know, you got to follow all the rules in the Baptist church, you know. And so I remember growing up, one of the things, even now, one of the things would be like if you go into a different church for something, or let's just say I'm going to speak at a church, one of the things you always want to know is, well, can women wear pants in that pulpit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or can they even go?
That's a question I've asked in 2020. Like, and this was January. I said, can I wear pants in this pulpit? And then I said, never mind, I'll just wear a dress. Why am I asking that question? Because again, what's the rule? Is it acceptable, right? Or it's communion Sunday, so no, the women can't wear pants this one, right? That's literally, and it's so ingrained in you, you know, that you think you can't wear a red lipstick to church because they're gonna think you a harlot.
No, absolutely.
You know, or you can't wear this red dress because you can't get up there with that red dress on. Which
also explains the depth of racism in the country.
Absolutely.
It's so deeply planted that it's going to take more than just one Black president. It's going to take more than one Black person, you know, leading the Pentagon to be able to, or even Kamala being the vice president, which is nice, but it's going to take more than that to deal with the racism, because the root, it's as bad as we think it is.
Well, and I think that we also too, because we were trying to assimilate, right? Then we started adopting some of their ideas of what is beautiful, who is intelligent. I cannot tell you in the year 2020, I had a conversation with someone, and one of the reasons why I've never shared this with even LaTanya, that I did not cut my lock or have not cut my locks, is because I had a conversation with someone and they said to me, they let you be a doctor with that hair?
I got the same thing where I had natural. Yep.
Oh, hell no. I'm never cutting this. I'm going to be that dude with the locks back here. Like,
with one lock, holding on in the back.
Because we just assume that in order to be at a certain level, you have to look a certain way. You have to.
That would have gotten a good Southern Baptist cussing out.
Oh, I use some choice words. I use the common vernacular. But that is what it is, right? So we automatically assume that if you go into the room, like you said, Dr. Christian, and there's a smaller, you know, fair complexioned woman, and she may have a better texture hair than yours, or she may not. It doesn't matter. She's fair complexioned and she's small. We're automatically going to assume one, that's Dr. Christian.
Yep.
And she knows what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it happens. And you know, and our onus becomes as the sisters, we got to have those conversations, right? And it's not a conversation to go against the lighter skinned woman. We just got to really have this conversation, because it's possible that you don't see it and know it. That's very possible, right? Because if that's just always been your lens, you don't necessarily know that. Or you could be like, no, because this is who you are when you walk in the room and I don't see that. And it might not be that my lens is saying, woe is me, but we do have to talk about it, because there are going to be two of us somewhere else who are experiencing something similar and they don't know how to have that conversation, right? So we model that conversation, and then we bring in our brothers like, listen, feel free to love who you love and like who you like, but you ain't got to put this one down in the process, right? That, you know, it was mind-boggling to me to hear, and you see it, and it's subtle, right? You look at Stacey Abrams, people would compliment her brilliance, compliment her strength and her resilience, but it's some things you're not saying. But for others, you're leading with this person is beautiful. So on either side, it's slightly offensive, no matter who you're talking to, right? And I think that we have to get to a space where we create the forums to have the difficult dialogue. But those are closed door conversations. I am a believer in every discussion cannot involve another culture. Some stuff for us has got to be handled with us, by us, for us, and in our space. Because that's been our challenge. We invite too many people in with an opinion that this is not your fight, right? And so I think we have to start creating those spaces where we can talk about that. Things that aren't so blatant. We highlight the blatant people, right? And I remember saying this very recently when we saw that coach from Chattanooga, a football coach who made some really disrespectful comments about Stacey Abrams. And so he got fired. He was also a coach in the HBCU, right? Here's the challenge. The challenge is not necessarily him, but it's that there are hundreds like him who sit in your living room who tell you how they're going to take care of your boy. And the challenge is his mama looks like Stacey Abrams. So for this young man who is out here sacrificing and playing and tackling and catching and doing all of that, he has to look at the coach knowing that the coach thinks this about my mom.
Right.
Right. That's that, because we've invited too many people in thinking if I put a white face in, I'm going to get more stuff. If I got a white coach on the team, talent or not, that's fine. But if I have a white coach, I'm going to progress further. We didn't even know that guy coached at a HBCU until we found out what he thought about Black women.
But let's take it a
coach
step
didn't give
further.
you anything.
Well, let's take it a step further, Dr. Christian, because you're putting that on a white man, but we got brothers that think the same way. We have brothers that will be with a Black woman until they get to a certain level of success. And when they get that level of success, they will leave her.
And talk shit about Black women in the process.
Exactly. Right. And so then again, going back to our responsibility to each other, Black men and Black women, like your mama looks like that. And when something happens to you, OJ, you're going to come back to that community. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to pet you up, because that's what Black women are very, very, very infamous for doing for us is Black women. We can go out there and we can do whatever, because, you know, again, that's the message that has been taught to us, is the behavior that's been modeled to us, that we can do whatever and we can come back and a Black woman is going to take care of us. And you know what the Black woman does? She takes care of us. And she never says, you know what, I'm doing this, but you also owe me a responsibility. You are like, this is a reciprocal relationship, right? So I'm doing this for you, but what are you doing for me?
So I'm gonna throw this question out there too, you know, because so what do we do in the Black community? And we're kind of like having that conversation now. It's like just kind of us. What do you do when, in order to be connected to another brother or sister, whether it's friendship or a love relationship, you also, in a sense, kind of get tied to what's attached to them, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so it's what's in their family or family problems or whatever it is. I remember, it might have been Vernon Davis. One of the athletes came out of DC, came a professional athlete, and the comparison was they were talking to him about, why do these Black athletes go get these white women? Like all the Redskin players come out of the game and they get in their cars and there be white women with them. Mm-hmm. Maybe one Black player has a Black woman with them. Yep. And I think he said something like this. He said, well, when I go to with my Black girlfriend to her family functions or cookout or whatever it is, everybody's coming up trying to get tell me their new entrepreneurial business they want to start. Can you fund this? Can you loan this? Can you do this? Can you buy this? Everybody's bringing their problems. When I go with my white girlfriend to her family functions, it's like her father's like, here's my friend this, who's the banker. Here's my brother who does this. He's the lawyer. He's introducing me into connections and resources where I'm getting bills and requests and wait at the Black. So I'm wondering, what would you say to that when you're talking about, when you plug into somebody, you know how it is when you get married to somebody, you talk about asking what their credit score is, right? Because once you attach to them, what's attached to them kind of comes along with that.
Right. And so what I would say is that is bullshit, because he's just introducing you to another level of a person that's asking you for something. The banker's not coming to you and saying, hey, I'm just going to give you $1 million. They're saying, hey, why don't you come and bank with me because we have these programs. The attorney's not coming to you and saying, oh, I'll represent you for free. You know, if you need legal representation, the attorney is telling you what type of representation he'll give you. You'll talk to his finance folks and you pay your bill. Right. So it's a different level of somebody trying to get something from you, but they're still trying to get something from you. It's let me flip it and then respond to this. And that is, they might like to, I think they like to give a lot of things away free, but it's also kind of put you in debt to get something else. Exactly. Maybe. So again, you still, it's the same thing. So,
and it's, you know, cultural capital, right? Mm-hmm. You move different because you're exposed to different, right? And let me say this before I get the statement in the space of this. Dr. Ford talked about the ACA and Counseling Association, right? Now, Dr. Ford, and I know he's going to give it to me however I need to hear it. And if I'm presenting somewhere and Dr. Ford can be there, he's going to be on the front row clapping, okay? Now, if it's ACA and he sees me walking with this man at the mixer who does not know how to engage at the mixer, Dr. Ford might say to me, now listen, I love you, but I'm gonna need you to walk with that guy on how he need to order his drink here at the bar, because he's had his 5th Hennessy now. And this might be a problem for you in said profession, right? We can have that conversation. That's just it. Because that's your space of cultural capital, of social capital is changing, right? Your environment is changing. So I have to think about things like, if I'm on this task force now here with the governor, and there's a outside open up and there's a gala and I happen to get an invite, can he go to the gala? Okay, it's not about what you do for a living. Well, you're gonna have to put on this suit and we're gonna go to the gala. And you got to be comfortable in whatever it is you do for a living, because what we know is that white people are going to ask you what you do for a living and where you went to school. We just know that that's going to happen. That's just that casual conversation, right? Next, so I get in the space of sometimes as you move into a different level, some people who have to go with you, you got to be intentional. I think the challenge for some of the athletes who take that mindset is you are only in that space because you could catch the football. And have you gotten your training in how to move in that space? Because you can see the athletes who don't know how to navigate those spaces, and you see their professional challenges. And I think like what Dr. Bell is saying, that's that kind of when they come back to the white woman, right? Because to the Black woman, because the white woman is kind of left you at that point because you don't know what to do when you go in these settings. And so, yes, maybe the cousins of the Black women are saying, listen, I'm about to start this food truck. I just need a quick investment of $25,000. And you don't want to feel like you always have to answer those questions. So you go over here with the white woman and she's saying, my grandfather is the president of this family-owned bank, et cetera. So in your mind, she can connect you to more. The difference is that the Black woman's cousins have not had the opportunity to have that cultural capital. That social capital doesn't exist for them. Somebody on the white side of the family had to make it exist for them too. You know, someone had to say, we don't own a bank right now, so someone has to give me a loan. The challenge is the player's lens is I've made it, and so now these people want to pull something from me. But when you go over to their house, have you really made it in their eyes now? If you weren't the guy who could throw the football, would you be welcome in their home?
Absolutely.
Well, the next question.
At the Black woman's house, you're gonna be welcome because that's Tasha's friend. So he coming by and they say he nice. That's what they're gonna say, right?
But Tasha,
you're gonna be welcome here.
But Tasha, there's another side to this. Why would a Black athlete assume that there weren't Black women with cultural capital?
Facts.
I have girlfriends who are college educated, PhDs, multimillionaires that some of these Black men won't even consider because she's not white.
Yeah.
So all Black women,
or how she looks,
and or how she looks, but all Black women aren't in need of something, and their families.
Correct.
I have several girlfriends. Their families are loaded. They don't need a thing. They wouldn't ask you for a thing. Their families were free in slavery. They were freedmen.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, why is there an assumption by Black men that Pookie and them gonna ask them for something when they come to my house or when they come to my girlfriend's house? Because the fact of the matter is, Pookie run his own company. He don't need you.
And listen,
but the assumption is that, you know, my Pookie needs you. My Pookie don't need you. We just welcoming you over for some ham. You know, that's what we do.
Ham.
So I'll confess this, that.
So.
Oh yeah, because you going down Reverend Owen Street. So.
Okay. So Reverend Owen is not going down your street.
No, I was gonna just say, like, you know, when you ask the question about what makes you think this and that, to me, I feel like I have a very good answer for that, and that is, I have a desire to be a stand-up comedian. I would love to do that. It's not my gift, but I secretly want to do that. But one thing I noticed when watching a lot of comedy is how Black people, how we constantly, relentlessly reinforce these horrible ideals about our culture.
Yeah.
And reinforcing all of us love to lick our fingers and kill ribs at the barbecue. And maybe every now and then we might feel that way, but that is not who we are, right? But we reinforce these stereotypes about our culture so much that this is why we start assuming that every Black person got their hand out, every Black person ain't gonna do the job adequately, because we joke so much about this stuff that it seems like it's who we actually are when it's not true. Mm-hmm. There are some very conscientious entrepreneurs who will come and fix your roof and fulfill their guarantees and do the right thing.
Well,
Quality work, skilled laborers. This is all very true. And every pastor is not a thief, you know, or trying to get over or sleep with all the women in the church. This is true, but the way we joke and like all of our memes we share about the church and about Black people online, the sketches we do is all reinforcement of something that's so bygone. And I think maybe it's time for us to challenge the entertainment side of ourselves and the artists and the entertainers that are Black and say, let's be done with that and let's move on to, you know, another level of
absolutely.
You know,
I agree.
That's why the Cosby Show was so famous, because it kind of broke that mold of, you had your 70s sitcoms like your Good Times,
great example,
and the Sanford and Son. Here comes the Jeffersons that kind of changes that, because you got George Jefferson, who he still talks like us, but he moved it to the east side.
Something.
Yeah, and then you had like the Cosby Show and Family Matters that show like Black suburbia and Black families, that were doing well and not living in the ghetto and living the good times type of image, And then you got shows like Blackish that kind of use that, but push the envelope even more, and so that's why those shows are gaining all the traction, because I think it was Michael Eric Dyson that said this: we're tired of looking at pathology in the Black community on TV. We're tired of looking at slave movies. Why don't we, that's not the only story that needs to be told. Right. We have the group that says, we still need to hear those stories because we're not learning about those things. I think we still need to continue to challenge, Black producers and movie makers and screenwriters and script writers and telling the entire story. Tell our story, yeah.
Which is like, and just for a quick example, like our brother Tyler Perry. I'm super proud of Tyler Perry for buying that lot and for just becoming who he became. And I love that he's close to being a billionaire. I love it. Yeah. But the Medea thing was funny. A lot of those things were very well done.
That's how my grandma was. My grandma was like that growing up.
But it still reinforced this kind of,
you can tell two parts of our story, right? Like, so we recognize that Good Times was very real, right? Yeah. But we also can recognize that the Cosby Show is very real. I know I've taught marriage and family counseling, and one of my questions is always, what's your representation of an ideal family? Independent of race, everybody picks the Cosby Show. They say the Huxtables, right? Because it represents so much that to this day, or look at a different world, right? We're going to college and HBCU, etc., and having, so Denise went as a child of college educated parents who were paying for college. You had others who were there on a scholarship, those who were there financial aid, single parents, non-single parents, all that good stuff. It represented that for us. So you can tell the New Jack City. I'm fine with you telling that because that's real. But you can also tell Blackish because that's real too. And so until we flood the system with, for every Tyler Perry show or movie that is Medea driven, let's also do one that is healthier driven, right? So because the beauty of it is we're not monolithic as a people. So let me choose. I like to watch both, right? Or I might you know, I think Pastor Owen said it. Yeah, you might catch me at this family function doing this because that's my people, that's who I am. But that doesn't mean that that's the only part of my story. You should not be surprised when you see me in either setting, because the beauty is I can move in both settings because I'm true to who I am.
But Dr. Krishna, that's a problem in the Black community too. We don't allow each other to be diverse.
At all.
Like in your case, we feel like you gotta like Black stuff and do Black things Black way. And if you don't, you're labeled as something else, you know, or you're seen as such an enigma or mystery where people don't want to touch you. You can't really be embraced if you are diverse. If, like you said, if you could dress this way one day, like I see Dr. Ford in his tie and whatnot, but I'm sure if I was just driving around the city and seeing he might be coming out of the gym, have a sweatsuit on. So, but it's only currently.
That's just Dr. Ford. That's just
On the
Dr.
treadmill.
Ford.
But you're right. We don't get to move in those spaces. We don't give Black people the freedom to move like that.
Do that, and I mean, I think that's a challenge. We need to find some way to work on that, just in a subconscious way that, you know, we can flow in different modes and flows and things, and it's still good. You know,
I agree.
You're not less from the streets because you start talking with proper English.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Absolutely, because you think about just like music, it can be so many things, and a person will almost cast you out, like they're gonna challenge your Black card because there's this one thing that you might say that's different, or you like something that's different, or you know, what if I want Mediterranean today? I recognize that I could have gotten this today, but I say maybe it's a bit healthier for me to not eat that tonight. Right. You know, because you start to say, we want us to be healthier. We want us to just make some better choices sometimes. Like and we've just developed this space of an either or that other cultures don't have. A Jewish person who is celebrating Seder on Friday evening and is speaking in a certain language and participating in this event, you don't see them being ostracized because on Tuesday they're not speaking that way. You just don't see that, right? And I think just as our people, we've struggled with that, and we've struggled again. So much of it is not because we're not healthy or good people to our core. It's just how we got here. So much of it is not on us. What is on us is where we go from here.
And could I ask the panel real quick? Could I ask the panel, could you name one stereotypical Black thing that we would be surprised that you don't do?
I do not eat watermelon, nor do I drink Kool-Aid.
I don't eat baked beans.
I'm trying to think. I don't eat eat like chitlins. I
love them. Ooh, I need some in my life.
I don't. I try, and I was like, oh God, this gotta go. I was like, oh, get it away.
Parisha she does not fry chicken. We taking your card, Parisha.
Listen, you know what though, Parisha, I connect with you, right? I don't fry chicken in my house because I can't. I eat it, but I don't fry. People are like, you gonna fry some chicken today? No, I'm not. I would go to my family to get that. No,
I'll fry you some when you come to Jersey.
I would do it because I don't. I'd be like, I can eat it, but if you got me in here with the bag, I just don't. And people will look at me and be like, well, what you gonna do if you get married and your husband wants chicken? I don't know. He better call his family. Go to Popeyes, where I be at. Get a 2-piece.
Anybody in here swim?
I don't swim.
I do.
I swim.
But I love country music.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm with you on that.
I love country music. And I love sushi.
All right, hold on.
Yeah.
Doctor, do you like go-go?
I do like go-go. Yes.
That's a regional thing. I think
DC stuff.
That's because she's in the area. I asked because she's in the area right now.
Go-go is a regional thing. I don't know. I can't think of anything that I.
So you very.
I'm 100% Black. I'm Black.
Yeah, I think about it. I don't do. I connect with you, which I do not fry chicken. I can't. I just don't.
Okay, well, okay, so I'm lying because if you were to come to my house, and the way that my house is decorated, my cousin says that my house is decorated like a white woman.
It is.
Oh, Dr. Lafitte.
They said, gonna let you know today.
It's gorgeous.
He said it looks like a white woman came in and just did her thing.
But you know, I have gotten feedback too that my house is not very, what someone told me was you wouldn't be able to tell the race of the person if you came in this house. And I was like, well, what you saying? I just decorated the house based upon the energy that I want to convey in the house. That was it. But I've received that before. They say, yeah, decorate. I don't know you Black if you in this house. Well, I don't.
Some Black pictures of Black people.
What's the Black? I don't know what I'm supposed to put up, right? I'm not gonna put up the picture of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Jesus. Now I'm not gonna do that, right? So I just, I don't have it. No.
Yeah, I have my parents up. You can tell that I'm, somebody, and I have the Orisha up now in my house. So, so I do have some Black things, but yeah, that would be one thing. Dr. Lafitte, you did have something to say, and we've cut you off several times, so I did want to give you an opportunity to say what you were trying to say.
I don't even remember what it was. I think one thing that we have to create space for is just like we have to be more open-minded for mental health, we also have to be more open-minded for financial literacy within the Black community. So we can't be comfortable in different environments if we haven't created those open spaces to learn that information. Now I see a lot of children learning about Bitcoins and stuff, but how many adults are actually learning about different financial literacy that's taking place? If we don't educate our own, then someone else is definitely going to do it for us.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's an unhealthy, it's not unhealthy. It becomes an uncomfortable conversation. We got to talk about how do we create true generational wealth. Now, I do think that they're tying in the church. I think that there are some pastors who do an excellent job of preaching true financial stewardship, and what that looks like. Because every sermon can be a prosperity one. Sometimes you might need a fire and brimstone sometimes, but in the space of how do we train our culture? I've said this to someone very recently, and that was out of love when they were talking about not being able to get this particular car that they wanted. And I said, you are wearing your car note. And I said, because every time I've seen you recently, this is a new pair of Jordans that you got. So if I just multiply the 6 that you have, that's like 4 months of your car payment right there. Right. And I love you enough to tell you that, to say you're confused and why you don't have it, but you're wearing it. And you can have, I'm a believer in you can have whatever you've worked hard for. So if you've worked hard to get these Jordans, but not at the expense that you can't go out and buy a car.
Right. So we're getting ready to wrap up. So I'm going to let each one of the panelists give us their final thought. And we'll start with Dr. Christian.
I would say I just want our culture to work towards becoming as healthy as we can. I am so honored to have sat on this panel twice now. I believe that when outside opens up, we can do whatever that is, Lord. We can do some really good things in some communities. I really, really do believe that. And I'm appreciative that we've been able to talk about so many facets of our culture, and we've included the church, because sometimes this becomes a for and against conversation, and it hasn't been that. And so I think that we have the potential to really, really work to educate some communities. I think this panel has shown synergy and how it moves. And so I think we can continue that.
Dr. Lafitte.
I think it's very important that we continue to, as Dr. Christensen said, outreach within the community and provide those safe and open space to actually provide from a holistic perspective, physical, mental, spiritual, financial health as a whole in order for the culture to really move forward as a unity.
Dr. Ford.
One thing is, stay Black. Stay Black. And someone on Facebook posed the question: if you could be any race, so what you are now, what would it be? Blacker. Yes. And another thing is, I think all of us, when we talk about the Black church, we also have to be willing to partner with Black churches. I see a lot more pastors, either having lists of licensed therapists in the community where they will refer their members, or having counseling centers in the church, or they are going to get their master's in counseling or social work, And so I think the impetus is on us to build those partnerships with churches and helping to demystify the counseling process for folks who don't know that you can have Jesus and a therapist too.
Yes. Reverend Owens.
Absolutely. I would say that I've definitely been guilty of being too much of an optimist, but I really do believe that the good is happening and it's coming, right? That it's all a part of a grand process that is hard to see, like you can see certain things on a microscope that you can't see with the natural eye. It's a grander scheme happening that I think the divine is up to. So it's all happening and coming. I think that everybody in your circles that you're praying for, that you're hoping for, that you're wanting to see grow into that healthiness, I think it's happening and that it's coming. And that the best thing that we all could do as individuals is to just shine our lights super bright, like show up as the best version of yourself in your home, your family, your community. Show up as the best version of yourself, right? And people will be attracted to that. And you can mentor people from a distance. You can mentor people and help people that don't even know you just by shining super, super bright. And just remember that it's happening and it's coming. It's a dirty construction site, but when it's all finished, it's going to be something really to behold once it's done. So I feel like that's what's happening in the Black community, that we are in process and in progress. It is happening and coming. It's just ugly at some moments, So, but be encouraged. I would say get your credit score up, drink your water, say your prayers, and grow your edges.
Pastor, we coming to your church. Just know that you gonna host it. All right, we're gonna be there. Okay.
We didn't really give you all an opportunity to ask questions, so I'm gonna open it up. Does anyone in the audience have any questions, comments, anything that they want to say? I've been following the chat. I've been posting things in the chat, but if you have something that you want to say or a question or something, you can say it.
We coming to Pastor Owens Church. We're gonna let you bring in the community. We're gonna be there.
I can't wait. Can't wait.
When the outside opens up.
Well, so I have a few announcements. I have put in the chat the Facebook page for the National Association for Black Counselors. Like us, follow us. This is for us, by us. As Dr. Ford stated, the American Counseling Association is not our organization. It wasn't founded by us. It didn't have us in mind when it was created. This organization was founded specifically for us, for our community. So like us, follow us on Facebook. If you're a counselor, if you know a counselor or a mental health professional, it doesn't have to be a counselor. I put the link in to join us. So our information is there, so you can go to our website and you can join. We have a directory and a database that links you to other therapists. So that's something that's free that we're putting out there for people that are members. Their information goes right into the database, and people can come to us to find Black counselors. Also, as I said in the beginning, we are doing a discussion group every month, the third Sunday in the month at 1 o'clock. The next one will be in February, and ironically enough, that particular discussion is looking at the Black church. And that will be on February hold on just a minute, I'm pulling it up.
The 21st.
February the 21st at 1 o'clock. And the moderator for that particular discussion will actually be Dr. Lafitte. We are finalizing the discussion for March, which is going to focus on the Black Children, Education, Mental Health, and the School to Prison Pipeline. The moderator for that discussion is going to be Dr. Christian. I know that discussion is going to be fire. I've got three deltas on that discussion. Sigma, like I already know, and I know all of these people personally, so I know that conversation is going to be fire. In April, Dr. Ford is going to be moderating a discussion. I'm getting approval for that topic, so I'm not going to put that one out there yet, but I guarantee you that particular discussion you want to be a part of. We're staying on top of what is going on in our community, in the world, in the news, and we're trying to bring stuff every month. In addition to that, if you are a mental health professional, we are moving to where we are going to be an organization that will be able to offer you your CUs. So you want to definitely join us and be a part of us. Like I said, we're an organization for us, by us, and we're trying to put out content that supports and strengthens our community. In closing, this conversation was not to solve the problems of our community in an hour and a half, but it was to spark continued conversation on this topic. Right? So as our presenters have said, you have this conversation here, then you go out and you talk to somebody else. And that's how it goes. It overflows. And if going back to the church, if your cup overflows, it gets all over the table and everything gets wet, right? So you taking this and you're going back to your community and you're talking about it, those people will talk about it to somebody else. And it gives you a different perspective. We're just mimicking the therapeutic process in a discussion group. Thank you all for taking time out to participate. Thank you to my wonderful panelists. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Faye, for the opportunity. You all have a blessed Sunday.
Great.
Thank y'all so much. We're going to see y'all when outside opens up.
Yeah.
Pastor Owen's church.
At Pastor Owen's church.
Yeah.
Because we laying out claiming no student loans, okay? Just put that, I said it last time, top of the prayer list, Pastor.
Yes.
Okay? I'm going to do right by my money. Sing. Okay?
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.